I'll start with a simple question. Yeah. So, Marcel Duchamp and your work together, how does it feel? Or
it feels wonderful. It's really it's a dream to be able to have so many works brought together, and the different juxtapositions of the work, the way to view a work. In connection to the other works. It's really a dream.
And you have often said you were a big fan of Salvador Dali, that you met him also when you were a teenager. How was your relationship with Duchamp's work develop? And did he have the same role that you think Salvador Dali had in your work?
I think Dali accepting to meet me as a young teenager. I was 18. I thought that was very generous, and I think that what I've really have walked away with, over the years of understanding of Duchamp's work, is its generosity. So, just an extremely generous person with his ideas, the liberation of his ideas, how it helps open up all the possibilities to us in life.
One of the best descriptions of Duchamp, I think, is from his friend Henri Pierre Rocher. They say that his greatest artwork was the use of time, because he was able to do a lot and nothing at the same time. And maybe that also has to do with generosity. I think you have a very interesting take on the idea of the ready-made, that it's less about philosophy and more about engaging with the world as it is. Do you want to talk about that? Or?
I think over the years, Massimiliano, just my involvement with the ready-made, I started to realize that these objects are really just metaphors for people, for ourself and for other people. The whole idea of like pop art is this sense of looking at something outside the self. Mm-hmm. And so the ready-made for me has always been kind of functioning as between this, on the outside of the interface, representing the outside world and the possibilities of this interaction.
In another conversation, you told me something that really opened up a whole different take on the ready-made. For me, the idea that the ready-made is about accepting the world and accepting everyday objects, and acceptance is a central term in your own work. And you say that if you accept a urinal as an artwork, then the world becomes full of possibilities. And I find that a really both inebriating and almost frightening thought, that we could go through life liking everything, and with the freedom of doing what we want with things. Do you see that as the purpose of your work or the purpose of your life?
I think so, and I think so. I mean, it's so beautiful to be able to go through life and to be able to be open to everything and find it perfect in its own being for what it is. And if it has significance to you, you incorporate it, and it's there. It's something which can be used and adapted. It can help empower you. And if it's something that you really don't find significance, you don't make judgments about it, because judgment just creates anxiety. But you're able to just move forward and keep everything in play. And if everything's in play, everything's at your disposal. It's empowerment.
To me, this exhibition was very exciting, not only for the opportunity of showing your work and the work of Duchamp, but if I had an ambition, I would say that I would love for the viewers to go through the show and then go out in the city and experience the city differently. There is so much mythology around Duchamp and how he bought his objects when he goes to buy the fountain or buy the shovel. And also in your work, in the use of the posters or some of your ready-mades, there is almost a romance of the city, and particularly the city of the 20th century as a bustling economic hub. how do you see your work in relation to the world out there? Now, and particularly in a city like Mexico City, which is now the new incarnation of a metropolis.
You know, so many times we can look at an artwork and we look at it as kind of the definitive thing, this object or this image, and it's the definitive thing. And what I've enjoyed about having a dialogue with the ready-made is the realization that the artwork is only like a transponder, or the ready-made's only a transponder, something which can excite and stimulate the viewer and bring them into kind of contact with the essence of their own potential. And so to be able to go out and look at the world and see things which can stimulate, it can excite, it just lets somebody have an idea of more of a vastness that they can achieve, or the type of connectivity that they can make that lets them feel a sense of purpose or a sense of hope for themselves and for the world.
And do you have any favorite piece by Duchamp in this show or elsewhere?
I mean, it's a beautiful exhibition. How many Duchamps are here? Over 50 some?
It's a good question. I don't know. We have a total of 80 works, so it must be between 30 and 40.
Okay.
Or
they're all striking. You know, the beauty of just the bicycle wheel behind us, to look at the shovel. The shovel always is so powerful in its impact, its minimalism, its beauty. I mean, each work is so strong, and it's just wonderful to see the dialogue, how the openness of, because all of these things are vehicles which help kind of teach people how to open themselves up to life, to experience, to let their bodies be sensitive to experience. And through feelings and sensations, we develop ideas. It's a kind of a basics of experiencing life. And I think that this dialogue, this interface between our body and the external world, that it's always interwoven through the whole exhibition.
do you ever try to imagine what the life of an artist in early 1920s New York or 1910s New York would have been like? Or is that a thought that excites you?
I think of myself as a romantic. So, the idea to participate kind of in the history of the avant-garde, or to be involved with that type of sense of freedom and liberation that art can not only bring to your life, but that you can bring that to other people's lives. I think that's kind of at the heart of the avant-garde. And Duchamp and his friends in the early 20th century really represent that to me.
Do you feel his take on technology is both quite apocalyptic, these machines becoming almost like people having sex, and at the same time it's a kind of glorification of technology, and it's an anthropomorphization of technology. How do you feel technology has become today, or when you were making the Hoovers and that type of work? Was that a thought you had on? Could you even imagine that technology would play such a part in your everyday life now?
No, not to the level that it has, other than I've always have embraced tools to be able to achieve a certain vision. And so I've used technology just as a means to be able to realize a vision and to try to keep the work, I like to think, as objective as possible, as true to my original vision. One of the things that I find so beautiful about the exhibition, that you do have this very external aspect of Duchamp, the coldness of the ready-made and the machine-like quality of masculine and feminine. But at the same time, you have the pure celebration of desire and of just between biology wanting to, interact with nature, the continuation of nature.
Without drawing necessarily direct comparison, but in different ways, both you and Duchamp have transformed the definition of art. You have transformed the definition of the self, even in some of your works. And yet, obviously, as artists, you're always part of a history, of a lineage. In a gallery downstairs, there is a dialogue between Duchamp's Mona Lisa with a mustache and your Mona Lisa with a gazing ball. And further away, there is a video portrait, a film portrait of Duchamp by Andy Warhol. I'm curious, not so much, of how he feels to be in a pantheon of sorts, but more if you feel that artworks speak across generations, or when you make your own artwork, do you feel an immediate connection to who came before?
There are many great moments in the exhibition, but it's a beautiful moment to be able to see LHOQ and the Mona Lisa gazing ball painting, and then Duchamp's interview with Warhol. It's really very, very beautiful. And at that moment, Massimiliano, I really feel the generosity of the ready-made from Duchamp presenting it really is carried through with looking at the gazing ball, because it's really just a symbol of generosity. People put these gazing balls in their yard. But there's a sense of metaphysics that's really embraced there. Of course, Duchamp finding Leonardo greater than himself, giving it up to the Mona Lisa, making this external connection, this biological kind of connection culturally. And of course, I'm giving it up to both Duchamp and to Andy Warhol and to Leonardo by making the Mona Lisa gazing ball. And Leonardo's giving it up to Verrocchio and Bellini and Uccello. And so this type of metaphysics of a cultural history that we're completely connected to our past, and at the same moment we're here now, and the essence of the future, our own potential.
For me, you mentioned the gazing ball, and in a sense the exhibition ends in the glass gallery with the Boîte and Valise and Hulk and Lobster, and particularly Hulk and Lobster are they close the circle with the ready-made, because you have said something similar about the gazing ball. You say the gazing balls, you have to remake them because otherwise they wouldn't be perfect. No, if you bought them off the shelf, they wouldn't be perfect. And with Hulk and Lobster, you have a similar situation of two objects that look like ready-mades, but you've gone through I don't know how many years of work to actually go full circle. No, it's a simulation of the everyday and painstakingly achieved, in a sense to lead you nowhere or to lead you back to where you started. Is there something that gives you pleasure in that circle, or where does it lead you, or simply even why doing it?
Time and metaphysics is really present kind of everywhere throughout the exhibition. But if you just have a membrane of a balloon or some type of vinyl, eventually it'll get soft and it's not going to maintain its kind of permanence. And there's this aspect of time that it's challenging the viewer, putting you in contact about the fragility of the viewer, and about pushing to look at things more metaphysically. So I think that's taking place. I think time's also expressed here. If you look at the photograph of the large glass being worked on and all the dust on top of that photograph, Duchamp worked on that piece about 20 years or more. Yeah. And Play-Doh, I've worked on that piece for 20 years. So aspects of time and the commitment of, now sometimes are à temps donné. Sometimes time works in your favor.
an interesting question about time. I remember, I think it's in the Sculpture After Sculpture catalog, Charles Ray says that he would like to see the balloon dog in 2,000 years, maybe without a leg, not like like the marbles from the Parthenon. Do you ever think? First of all, do you think it could possibly happen that in 2,500 years, your work doesn't look pristine as
absolutely,
as it does now?
You know, absolutely. The aspect of patina and obsolescence comes involved in everything. I think the balloon dog does have a sense of, you feel a connection to history, of human history. You could imagine, like in archaic times, people may be performing some type of ritual around it. But also in the exhibition, this aspect of obsolescence, and that objects, there has to be kind of a continuation, and that continuation, or that aspect of continued life for something, relevance for something, really comes from the viewer, not from the object itself, but it's whether the viewer can find or maintain some level of interest in it.
Well, Duchamp famously said that it's the viewer that completes the work. No? And you have often spoke about, also in relation to Balloon Dog, that the viewer is the ready-made. And so many of your works are reflective. Duchamp was also very fascinated by refractions. He spoke about the mirrorical return, which nobody really knows what was about, or he spoke about the sheet of glass separating the viewer from the object of desire. So maybe that could also be a conclusive question, but how do you imagine your viewers today, and how would you imagine them also in the future? What do you think is their contribution to the artwork?
You know, the dialogue about the viewer really starts at the end of the 19th century. And in Vienna, you have Freud, and you have an art historian, Alois Riegel. And he's the one that first starts to talk about the beholder's share, and the idea that the viewer finishes a work of art. So it really generates out of Vienna, and then moves to other parts of Europe and Paris and Duchamp, where it starts for the first time. I'm sure the ideas were there before, but it first starts to really become verbalized. You know, I would hope that the idea of acceptance and a sense of optimism, in a way that people have the inner power to put kind of the best foot forward in life. Acceptance has become a term that I've really enjoyed working with, and have tried to use my art to communicate. But if I think about this exhibition, and a perfect image of acceptance is a large glass. And when the large glass became broken in shipment, and Duchamp decided to make that breakage part of the piece, that it finally was finished. I mean, to accept that something you labored on for over 2 decades, it all of a sudden becomes broken, and then to be able to accept that moment, that it becomes part of it, to finish it, I think is a beautiful gesture, and shows how important acceptance can be in our life.
I still haven't been able to verbalize it, but you know, what I was also trying to express in this exhibition is how, in strange ways, both you and Duchamp have an attitude towards both consumption, but a kind of illumination, which in some cases in Duchamp is achieved through removal, a kind of detachment, like accepting that the glass is broken, and in other moments is through an excess of consumption, which is a theme also very present in your work, that you can attain a kind of ecstasy by accepting everything. No? Do you feel that is what your work is about, a kind of ecstasy of plenty?
You know, I never think of it in that way. I think of it as a visual, you know, visually kind of intoxicating. I think of it as of excitement and stimulation. But I don't think it's, I've worked with excess for excess, but just that things are at the moment that you feel as a viewer, all of your needs are kind of met, that you're able to go along with the abstraction. Even though we're looking at very concrete kind of objects and images, I think there's a Platonism that's interwoven through everything, that the idea or the ultimate beauty really does come through ideas.